Welcome to the Biblical Leadership at Work podcast. I am your host, Jason Woodard. On this month's episode, we will meet Corey Carlson. Corey is an entrepreneur, former executive, husband, and father of three. And Corey understands the pressures working parents face. He is passionate about helping business leaders win at home and at work. With 20 years in corporate America, Corey worked his way up to the executive level, but also witnessed challenges such as work without purpose, burnout, and strained relationships. Discovering coaching transformed him into a better leader, husband, and father, which led him to leave his corporate career to help others achieve success both professionally and personally. He does this through executive coaching, speaking, and writing. Corey holds a civil engineering degree from the University of Missouri and an MBA from Rockhurst University. He is the author of Win at Home First, an inspirational guide for work-life balance, and Rise and Go, a resource to help leaders recover from challenges. He also hosts the leadership podcast Win at Home First, which is recognized as a top 1.5% global podcast. Today, we'll explore Corey's journey, his insights on integrating faith into leadership, and strategies for striving both at work and at home. So Corey, brother, welcome to the show, man. Thank you.
Jason, thank you very much for having me, and just the opportunity to talk about faith and work is pretty awesome. So Thanks for doing what you do.
Yeah, no, hey, thank you. You're putting out some great content as well. So Corey, tell us a little bit about your background from kind of university, career, right up to where the Lord has you now and how he got you there. Give us a 30,000-foot summary.
Yeah, I was as you mentioned, civil engineering degree out of college and went to a company, awesome company in Kansas City that I worked for, and great company. It's just, I didn't enjoy what I was doing. I kind of sit in a cubicle designing pavement, how thick the pavement needed to be. I was like, I don't want to do this. And not to go all deep in really quick, but I was also taking my identity to my job.
Yeah.
And I wasn't getting satisfied at the time of my life. I didn't completely understand, about, the problem with taking your identity to temporary things like your job or your money or car, status, house, any of those things. I didn't completely understand it. In that stage of my life, I was taking my identity in my job, which, was not a good thing. But I ended up finding another job at that time where I sold civil engineering products. Storm sewer, bridges, and I loved it. It was sales, which is something I enjoy doing, mixed with technical products and construction industry. I did that in Kansas City, had success, got promoted, and moved to Denver, Colorado, where I managed a bunch of states and people. I then got promoted to Cincinnati, where I was vice president of a $120 million division and overseeing a bunch of people throughout the country. And that's really when I kind of faced, some real ups and downs of leadership, and kind of come back to that. But then I took another corporate move where I went to be president of sales, which then got me into coaching, which is what I do full time.
Okay.
But kind of rewinding, when I was vice president of a $120 million division, I just leapfrogged my boss. I was now managing him. I was managing people older than me. I was managing people that had been in the industry longer. And so, Jason, what that meant is, I showed up with, imposter syndrome. I'm just waiting for them to knock on my door and say, Corey, you need to go back out to the field. We screwed up. You should not be here, in corporate. And so that caused me to skip the gym, skip quiet time. The kids playing on the floor, and my face was stuck in my laptop, on the couch. And I knew there had to be a better way. I didn't know what it was. I went to my boss, who, big fan of, and he just said, hey, get an executive coach. I've always had one.
Okay.
And I was like, okay. So I went and hired an executive coach, and it was a game changer. And I know that sounds extreme, but it's now what I do for a living. So obviously it changed my career.
Yeah.
But it also was a game changer because I immediately was able to zoom out. It wasn't just about a clean email inbox or a good looking P&L.
Yeah.
Those have their importance, no doubt about it. But instead it became about purpose. It became about priorities. And so I just started leading differently with my team. And then as I mentioned earlier, I took a corporate move another move where I was president of sales for a national contractor. I had 30 sales folks throughout the country. And Jason, as I traveled the country to meet with them, I talked home and work. I just knew for people to have sustainable success that you got to work on the whole self. So as I went to Nashville to talk to the sales guy, or I went up to Seattle or New York, I would basically with the sales individual, hey, are you dating your spouse? Are you being intentional with your kids?
Yep.
Are you getting to the gym? But then also on the work front, what's your hit rate on your proposals? Are you blocking out time in your calendar, for business development? What are your 3 key initiatives for this quarter? So I was leading both home and work. And when they got better and I knew I had gotten better, I was like, I want to do this for a living. And so that began the journey of me leaving corporate into coaching. And thanks to God's provision, it'll be here March 1st. It'll be 5 years that I've been coaching and speaking full time.
So that's a big leap. Corey, when you did it, did you just go cold turkey on the career and a regular steady check and moved into coaching, or did you kind of bridge it with ramping that up?
No, there's a whole story there, but it may be helpful to somebody listening. When I was president of sales, I had this burning desire, this itch, this prompting, whatever you want to call it, to go do coaching. But I didn't have the guts. I didn't have the guts. I made good money, and I didn't want to go from good money to zero.
Yeah. Yep.
I had a little identity tied in my job title. I was president of sales. That sounded a lot cooler than brand new coach. And so I didn't know really kind of what to do. I kept feeling the nudge, go coach. I would listen to podcasts of people talking about bold, courageous moves they made. And I was like, that sounds cool for that guy, but I don't think I can do it. I've got 3 kids and, a wife. And anyways, fast forward at this time is 2016. Fast forward to August 2016, we were owned by private equity. We had just been through a many-month process to try to sell the company. We interviewed with a bunch of private equity companies, narrowed it down to 3. Then went and signed on the dotted line with one of them. 45th day of the due diligence period, of the 60-day due diligence period, they got cold feet. So they backed out. And when you back out from a private equity sale, you're pretty much, it's known as a retrade, and no one wants you, because if they're like, well, if someone else saw something bad,
they figured something out. Yeah.
And that caused our ownership to be like, well, we're changing things. We're going from national to regional, and you start chopping things off. You don't need a president of sales anymore. So August 2016, I was terminated. And I made my first call was to my wife, and I said, babe, I got good news, bad news. Bad news is I just got fired. The good news is I have a 4-month severance package. Can I try coaching? And she says, yeah, you got 4 months. And then get a real.
And you guys, so she knew that was on your heart already.
Oh, yeah. She knew it. And, as God was working on me and my heart and kind of softening and preparing me from provision of, set salary, although we all know corporate America, it's not very secure because you can get fired any moment, just like I did.
Yeah.
But it is some provision. Like, I kind of thought, hey, corporate America is my provider. And I kind of was realized, hey, God's my provider.
Yeah.
My wife was really hung up on the insurance. Kind of like, because corporate does a fantastic job of brainwashing that, hey, man, you got to have this insurance, because if you go out, you can't get it. It was not near as bad as we thought it was. It's not amazing. It's crazy expensive, but it's doable for some listener listening. So anyways, before I got terminated, God was working on both my wife and my's heart of making this transition, right? God always prepares us before something happens. And he was doing just that. Those months leading up to it, he was preparing us. I didn't anticipate getting fired. And so I would have never thought that's what was happening, but he knew. Yeah. He was preparing both of us for when we got fired. So when I made that phone call to my wife, she wasn't scared. The idea of me going coaching wasn't, red alarm, panic, anything like that. So I stepped into coaching. And I had the 4 months, as I mentioned, and I was able to get my coaching up to about 50%, not 50% of what I made, but about 50% of, hey, if I could find another 50%, I'm in. And thanks to God's provision, there was a guy in Cincinnati, which is where I live. I did not know him, but we had the same executive coach who lived in South Carolina. So it's just cool. I mean, it's a cool story. Anyways, this guy needed help with sales and marketing he's a manufacturing company.
Okay.
So I helped him and he brought me on, and it ended up being about that 50% number I wanted. And I did that. I did 50% coaching, 50% helping this manufacturing. I did it for a while. Then I went 75% coaching, 25% helping the manufacturer. Eventually, then 90-10, and then 100-0.
Nice.
So on March 1st, 2020, which is not the best time to launch something.
That's so worse.
Which is a whole other story. Yeah. We went all in as a family into coaching.
Okay. Nice. So you're just on 5 years.
5 years.
A month. Yeah. That's awesome. That's a great story, because one of the things I always like to hear from people on these podcasts, Corey, is events like that in the moment were not great and were, can be kind of fearsome and shake your foundation a little bit, but then knowing you're this far through it and how things have went, people get fired, bad things happen. And, how does God work in those to sanctify us, and he provides for us and our families. So I love those stories.
Yeah.
I appreciate you sharing that. That's really good.
Yeah.
Tell us, Corey, a little bit about your family. You've hinted on that. What's that look like with your wife and children?
Yeah.
Where you guys at?
Married 26 years this summer, which is awesome. I mean, my wife supported me through some good decisions, some bad decisions, 3 different cities we lived in, 3 kids, going from, corporate to entrepreneurial. It's just been super supportive. It's been great. And, part of our story, my story, my first book's called Win at Home First. I wrote that book because I lost at home first.
Yeah.
I was so focused on myself and climbing the corporate ladder and doing all those things that I, you made bad choices.
Yeah.
And in that, she stuck with me through the whole thing. So my first book, Win at Home First, talks about, hey, what's it take for that leader to win at home and work? And that's why I'm passionate about it. I have 3 kids, 20-year-old daughter, 16-year-old daughter, and a 12-year-old boy.
Okay.
So we have conversations from, what are you going to do for your career? And, please pee in the toilet. I mean,
right. That's right.
We got all of the extremes.
Yep. That's great. No, that's an interesting. We had that range for a while. Now we're 30 down to 19. So we're just about done, and we're enjoying grandkids. So that's man,
great. You look good for being a grandpa.
We started early, and then our kids, they had children early. So it's nice because I can keep up. I got 2 granddaughters, so I can keep up with them.
That is awesome. Yes. Good. Yeah. That's my hope too, as well, to be an active, healthy grandpa when that time comes.
That's an incredible joy. What about your faith, Corey? When did you come to know the Lord? What's that look like?
Yeah, I came, 48 years old. So I came to faith with, like a lot of people my age, through Amy Grant and Michael W. Smith concerts and music.
Yeah. Grew up in the church?
I grew up in the church, and faith was great. Great. Growing up, my mom battled 7-year cancer, ended up passing away when I was in high school. And so that didn't leave a bad taste in my mouth towards God. But anyways, it definitely was part of my foundation of having faith, seeing my dad rock solid in his faith, seeing the church support us, come over on Wednesday nights and pray, and all cool stuff. So that happened. But then when I went to college, I drifted, early 20s, just went through a season of selfishness. And that all took place. I mentioned I went to Mizzou, then we started in Kansas City. When I moved to Denver, that's when things started to change. It was kind of almost to the point of, like, not that my wife was this direct, but it's kind of like, hey, let's go to church. I thought you were, a good Christian guy.
That's who I married, right?
Yeah, I mean, she didn't say that, but it was kind of like, let's go. And what the coolest part, Jason, is we went to this church in Denver. It was called Arvada Vineyard. Now it's Mile High Vineyard. And I just started getting around a cool group of guys that were real. And they talked about the ups and downs of their marriage, the ups and downs of, maybe a porn addiction they had, or burnout at work, or it was real deep conversations as opposed to sports and weather.
Yeah. Yep.
And that is kind of when God just started working on me through these guys of, just kind of deciding to, come clean of some of my darkness and start just living better. And so that is when my faith got stronger. Then we moved to Cincinnati, got even, stronger. And that's it's kind of been, up and to the right since.
Yeah.
Not that I'm perfect. I mean, I'm still trying to figure out kind of better ways to fine tune it and get better. Yeah. And
it's a process.
Yeah.
So you wrote a book on this whole idea of winning work and home. And I think what you talked about earlier, Corey, is, the focus and drive on our professional careers. I've been there. I like to think that I've learned how to balance that better, but I did not do it well. At one point it was my entire identity.
Mm-hmm.
And again, you have a whole book on it, so it's hard to summarize, but what are the, main principles and approaches that you take when you're coaching someone, or even in the book, for believers who are in that position to say, you gotta, the work-life balance has been overused, but tools, principles, where do you start?
Yeah. And, I even agree the word balance is not, when I wrote the book, I went on first. The subtitle is Inspirational Guide to Work-Life Balance. And I told the publishing consultant, I don't want that word. I want something like work-life harmony or something.
Yeah.
And the lady was so kind, because I was like, it's not balance. And the lady was so kind. She goes, listen, you're not Jeff Bezos or somebody. You can't just go making up words.
You can't make your own thing up, Corey. Not yet.
You need to do work-life balance. I said, okay, I get it. We'll do that. And I think a couple of things when I work with clients, and also what I had to come to grips with myself, and still remind, is realizing there's a couple mindset shifts. One is there is no work wins that are going to counterbalance home losses. You may be crushing on work right now, but if things aren't well at home, it's going to catch up to you. It could catch up to you and you get divorced and you now split all that amazing money you made 50%. Yeah. You could get to a point, you mentioned you're involved with your kids and your grandkids' life. Well, that's pretty awesome. That means you must have been loving and around with them, and therefore they want to be with you now.
Yeah.
So, if people don't come to grips with, you got to have success at home and work. Otherwise, it could be divorced, absentee parent, bad health, whatever that piece may be. So that's the first thing. Just having someone recognize that, hey, if you really want to have sustainable success, you've got to win at home and win at work. And so that's just a big thing to think about. What I'll also share with, clients is over my 20-year career, I've had 18 bosses in one family.
Right. Yeah.
I said yes to some of those bosses at the expense of my family, and I don't even know where they live right now.
Yeah.
I don't even know if they're alive right now.
Yep.
And it's just so sad how we will do those things, and no one remembers that you worked late except for your family,
right?
Or you worked hard on a Saturday except for your family. So I think the first says is that mindset shift of, hey, we're here on earth. We're not just here to be a great CEO or a great manager or a great salesperson. That's just one of our titles or roles.
Yeah, one of our roles. Yeah.
Husband, father, or
that's right.
Spouse, mother, whatever it is. And then, friend, and, it just so much. And so anyways, it's helping people realize all those pieces.
Yeah.
Inside the book has 4 parts. First part is you. Understanding your own self. Do you understand your identity? Are you not taken into temporary things that I talked about I did in my 20s? Instead, you understand that you are a beloved son or daughter. It is about understanding your purpose. In the book, I talk about how to put together a purpose statement. That was a game changer for me when I did that. It's a, a cool story that goes alongside with that. Understand your priorities. If you don't know your priorities, then someone else will make their priorities become your priorities. And so
that's right.
There's a 5 capitals framework I talk about in the book that is very helpful. So that's part 1. Part 2 is about marriage, which is the most important relationship in the home. And what I find so often, Jason, is business leaders stop dating their spouse. As the career takes off, as kids get old, grow up, and we got activities come Friday, Saturday, people are tired, people have headaches, or, whatever the thing is, and they don't go on dates. And so part 2 of the book is about pursuing your spouse. It's about serving your spouse. It's about forgiving your spouse. And so I talk about each of those pieces. The third part's on parenting. Parenting, about having a relationship with them that is both one of inviting them into relationship, but also challenging them into responsibility. Right? Truth and grace. Just how Jesus, led the disciples, the woman at the well, all of his encounters were both truth and grace.
Yep.
We need to lead our kids the way. And then many of us could err on one way or the other, where we're just high challenge, make your bed, get good grades, go. Right. Well, then you got the other people who are cozy and they have spoiled brat kids because it's yes to everything. You want to be their friend. They maybe buy them, beer on the weekends when they're in high school to be cool.
Yep.
And so that's the idea of the part 3, the parenting. And then part 4 is on work. How are you equipping and empowering your employees? How are you managing your calendar so that you can go home and not work in the evening?
That's right.
So it's about time management. It's about delegation. So anyways, those are the 4 parts.
Nice.
I wrote the book, and a buddy of mine, the day before it got published, he just sent me an awesome letter. Shout out to Nick, but he just sent me an awesome letter that just said, it is not about how many books you sell. It's about just being obedient. And that was a big step for me because, I can be results driven and just think about, so anyways, it's been a fun ride. It's been just pretty cool to hear how it's helping people. And luckily a guy at Forbes magazine said that's one of 7 books everyone on your team should read. So
nice. That helped.
It significantly helped. So that was pretty cool.
One thing that I love all those principles all the way back to having your own mission statement. When I finished my my MBA, which was at a Christian university, at Cornerstone University, I was one of the capstone projects. Was like, okay, so you've done this, now what? And we wrote this, and I still have it, and I still look at it, not a lot, but every year or so, and reflect on that. But something that I think I'm learning, or I've learned, and I'd be curious your thoughts on this, around, I call it that work-life balance, is there came a point when I had to realize that it was okay to bring my work home, and I'll explain a little bit of what I mean about this, but in my personal life to work, and let those start blending over. Like, who I am comes everywhere. Like, everywhere I go, what my spiritual life, like, I have a prayer list, and on my prayer list, one of the things on there is work and people I work with, and the business and our owners. And when I'm at work, I want to be able to talk to my teammates about my family and show them pictures of my grandkids and bring like my whole self. A lot of people talk about, bring your whole self to work, and I want them to do the same. And when I'm at home, I want, and my kids don't care. My kids barely know what I do, right? They don't care, whatever. But, to be able to have those conversations and say, this is a role that I do, that I'm passionate about, that I like to bring, it's part of who I am. And so there's been a piece of me that, for some point, I guess, in my life, I thought they were very, you keep work here, you keep your spiritual life here, and your family, it's separate. But there became like this, I don't know, this freedom I felt like, or it was just being more true to who I am when I'm me wherever I go, and all those pieces kind of come with me. Does that make sense at all? You see, do people like work through that or have to?
Well, 100% it makes sense. It is a lie that people are telling themselves that they think they can separate the two. Yeah. Maybe you could in the 50s. I don't know. But when we have smartwatches, smartphones, the computers with email and everything. It's integrated throughout the whole day,
all the time.
Even if that's not the case, which it is, but you get in a fight at 7 a.m. with your spouse as you're walking out the door, it is going to affect your workday. You will not be the best version of yourself at 9 a.m. because you're thinking about the fight you just had.
Right.
I should have said this. Dang it. And then as the day progresses, there may be, a text back and forth still with the fight continuing, but let's just say there's not.
Yep.
Come 3 o'clock, you start thinking about when I go re-enter into the house, I'm going to say this. And then they will probably say that. And then I'm going to say this. And so we end up, it just starts to happen. So back to why home is so important. If we win at home first, then we can be the best version of ourselves at work.
Yeah.
So I completely agree that they do get integrated between the two.
Yeah. And I would even say, to go piggyback on that, as a leader, I've had to remind myself that the culture that I'm developing and the way that I manage and lead is having an impact on the homes where those people are going. Because you and I have both had the experience of managers where maybe the home life is rolling good, but work is awful.
Yeah.
And you bring that home. And so as leaders, I think we have to realize that impact that we can have, positive or negative, even on people's home lives. So, and that's just, again, some of that, it just bleeds over. It bleeds over. So, yeah.
I was in that season, a few different times throughout my career where work was affecting home in a negative way. And one of the parts of Win a Home First, put together a vision statement. And the reason that kind of was birthed is when I was president of sales, I was at this dinner table and we were in Florida with private equity group. And this guy shows his phone to me about how loud his brand new Mercedes is. And I have no problem with rich people. I've got some really wealthy friends that are amazing and are so kind and so generous and awesome people. This particular situation, what bothered me was his energy was so high when he talked about how loud his Mercedes was. Then when we start talking about his spouse, the energy goes down, and his home life and his kids. And I was like, dude, this is crazy. Like, all he cares about is money and status and, position, power, and not his family. And here I am away from my family on a work night in Florida where I was like, what am I doing? So dinner's over. I go outside waiting for my ride to show up. I call my coach, and he picked it up. It was after hours, and so it just worked out. He was able to pick it up. I think he was traveling too or something. Anyways, I just said, man, is this really my life? Like, I'm just, as a president of sales, I'm just going to go help people make lots of money. Is that really my role in life? And he said, listen, come up with a purpose statement or a vision statement, and it will make each day more redeemable and help you stay focused. I was like, what? What is a sentence going to do to help me? That sounds dumb. And as some listeners are probably thinking about right now, like, Corey, that sounds like the dumbest idea ever. He said, just trust me. So I said, fine, I will. Because I've been with him on for whatever it was at that time, a 4-year journey together. And I'm like, all right, I'm trusting you here.
Yeah.
You using a 5P framework. You just do a brain dump on these 5 Ps: passions, provisions, potential, problems, and personality. Based on those 5 Ps, just do a brain dump of everything about you, throw it on there, look at the paper and see if anything pops up of, hey, is there a sentence there? Is there something that gets you motivated of how you were uniquely and wonderfully made? For me, as I did that exercise, the sentence that I put together then is the same one I still use to this day, and is to connect people to greater performance, even more significant purpose.
There you go.
So wherever I go, I can do that. If I'm around a fire pit with guys, how can I think about helping them perform better at work and home? How can I help them connect to a greater purpose? God, if that's part of the conversation, if I can, if it's an anti-faith conversation or whatever, it's like, just serve others.
Yeah.
When I'm with my kids, showed up different. But how this worked, Jason, for that time was when I traveled, I was thinking of that phrase, how do I connect people to greater performance and even more significant purpose? And it helped significantly. Year ago, I have a CEO of an excavating company reach out to me. Burned out. Home life's great, burned out. I went through this process with them, same things, like really a sentence is going to help. And he landed on to excavate people and buildings to build stronger foundations, something like that.
Yeah,
because it's excavate. He was an excavator.
Yeah, sure, yeah,
and he was a man of faith. Anyways, that gave him traction for a while. For a long while, probably still uses this to this day. But it's one of those deals where if you are a listener, if you are struggling, sometimes just zooming out and thinking about, hey, what is your purpose? How uniquely one of them made, and how does that apply to your job? Whether you're CEO of a manufacturing company, whether you're a coach, whether you're a sales guy or gal, wherever you're at, it can give you some additional momentum and juice as opposed to just grinding through emails every day.
Well, it gives you focus, right? It's why businesses write mission statements. I mean, this is what I'm going to get up and try to do every day. This is my thing I'm trying to do. So I think it is important. And again, I go back to, mine's a paragraph, but it talks about professional. It talks about my relationship with the Lord. It talks about my relationship with my wife and my children and serving the church. And those are still things that when I stop and think, what am I doing? What am I spending my time on? You know, am I hitting on those areas? Like today, I was thinking about this morning. I got up early. I try to get up early every day, spend time in the Word, spend time in prayer. And I was like, all right, it's a fairly busy day. I got normal work schedule. And then I'm going to come and have this interview with Cory, which to me is a ministry that I do this work to send out to other believers. And then this evening I'm meeting with someone about a board role. I serve on the board. I'm a chair of a board for a crisis pregnancy center.
Oh, wow.
And I'm going to go have dinner to recruit a board member. And I'm like, it's a busy day. I'm not going to have a lot of sit down and not do anything, but it's all, like, it's exactly what I should be doing today, not every day, but I'm like, okay, this is good.
Yeah.
So it ties back to that mission,
I love it. One thing I do encourage clients to do, and I'll encourage you, is to get it down to like 10 words or whatever to make it memorable.
Yes. You just know.
I've got a longer version like you do. So maybe for you, just grab your paragraph, throw it into ChatGPT and just say, put this in 10 sentences, 10 sentences, 10 word sentence, and just see what it does. And you may be like,
it'll do it. It'll do it. I hadn't thought of that. I use ChatGPT. Don't even get me started. I love it. I use it all the time, every day. So that would be that's a great idea.
Yeah. Give it a go. And then let me know what you come up with.
Oh, I will. Hey, Cory, I always like to ask people, like, what are your spiritual disciplines, man? What are the things you do to stay close to the Lord and grow in sanctification?
Yeah, the routine I'm in right now, from a daily standpoint, the routine I'm in is I got myself a 5-year prayer journal, this big old thick book. It is awesome. Nice. You can get it at Hosanna Revival. You open up, it's pretty much blank pages, except it has the date and you put in the year because it's 5 years. And anyway, so every morning I am reading a daily devotion from Daily Wisdom for Men. I then will read a chapter of the Bible that usually ties with that. And then I will write out my prayer in the prayer journal. So that is what I'm doing, minimum. And I've been pretty darn consistent at this year, which has been pretty awesome because I want to double down on prayer. I think for all of us, that's a secret weapon that we underutilize.
I agree. I totally agree.
And so I'm trying to lean into it more. So that's my daily routine. That's the daily routine. Fast forward and then take a look at weekly. It is, I've been doing a digital Sabbath for a couple of years where on Sundays it is 0 social media or email.
Okay.
And for some listeners, they're like, I've been doing that my whole life or whatever. It's like, that's good. I'm late to the party. I've loved it. So it has just been pretty darn awesome to do. And then here in this last year, I've incorporated some silent retreats.
Okay.
I
just talked to somebody recently who's doing that.
I did a day retreat last year at a cool place in Indiana. And then I also did a 4 or 5 day, I think it was 4, retreat at a monk monastery. And that was awesome. You really don't engage with the monks. It's just, they got a great facility down in Kentucky. But it was great. I'm doing it again in April.
You just go on your own to that?
Go on your own. And I think they call it unguided silent retreat is their terminology they use. So you just go down there and you do whatever you want. I mean, you can't talk in the building. But other than that, I mean, I think if you just want to go there and nap the whole time, you can nap the whole time. But
wow. And this is at a monastery?
Yeah, it's awesome.
Wow.
It's gorgeous.
What's it called?
Actually, the Gethsemane, Abbey of Gethsemane, I believe. It's in Bardstown, Kentucky. Bardstown, Kentucky.
Oh, yeah, I know where Bardstown is.
Yeah, it's awesome.
And they have, that's a little bit of income for them. They let people come in and just get away from the world for a little bit. Mm-hmm. Wow. That's interesting. Yeah, I literally just interviewed another brother in the Lord for the podcast, and he talked about that's something he's recently, last, I think, year or two started doing.
Yeah.
Retreats like that.
That's cool.
All right. Another question I have for you, Corey, when you think about leadership, which I know you do think a lot about, what are the core principles that you always go back to, those fundamentals of leadership for you?
Yeah, you kind of mentioned a piece of it earlier, which is making this, come to mind is, hey, who are you at home? Who are you at work? And it's integrity. Don't just talk about it, be about it. I mean, so be the same person at work as you are at home. If, you're trying to be all cool, calm, and collected at work, and then at home you're yelling because kids aren't brushing their teeth. I mean, there's a disconnect there.
Yeah.
What can you do to be more of your true self at all places that you go to? Because people want to follow leaders they trust, and they trust leaders that are like, yep, he's the same person, whether we're traveling in Phoenix or we're back, home at the plant. Yeah. He's the same person when he's with his family or when he's with the coworkers. And so when I think of leadership, it's, hey, check yourself. Integrity, the whole self. Are you the same person everywhere? I think that's a big piece.
Yeah, that's huge. I mean, that's the foundation that trust is built on, like you said.
Yeah,
I think about that because I'm not perfect at that. There's times, that I, for me, it's getting frustrated and angry, especially at work. I get pretty intense, and I'm like, man, that's not, who I want to be. I will say this, that I've had a couple of people I've worked with who became close friends, who even I had one who came to attend church. And so this guy, I've had a couple guys who knew me at work, spent time here with me, with my family, and in my church. And I'm like, that's good because, those guys have now seen me really in all my 3 major realms.
Love it.
And, for accountability, that's healthy for me. And I pray, and I think they would say, nah, he's the same guy. Yeah, I mean, he's maybe not as intense at home as he is at work, but overall, it's the same guy, same things that you're going to see and hear from him. So, yeah, I've had 2 experiences with that, with a couple of men.
That's awesome.
Close friends of mine. Yeah. So, hey, Corey, who are some leaders that you would recommend, other authors, podcast? I know you're a podcaster, so certainly we'll link to your show in the show notes and your books. But who do you love to follow and read and keep yourself sharp?
Oh, man, I could go on. You and I talk, it's top of mind right now because we talked about before we hit record, since you're in the manufacturing of the mining space. A client of mine who I love following because he's got his own podcast. It's a solo show. And he's fun to follow on LinkedIn. That's Keaton Turner. So he's not written a book yet, but he's a wealth of knowledge on LinkedIn and his own podcast. I mentioned the devotion I'm reading, the Daily Wisdom for Men. Dan Britton and Jimmy Page, they wrote the book. I think it's a fantastic devotional to do.
Not the Jimmy Page.
Not the guitarist or whatever he was. I don't even know.
Led Zeppelin, I think, is the Led Zeppelin guy. So
yeah. We talk about
That's funny.
spiritual disciplines we're working on. Another book I'm reading right now, Lead with Prayer. I'm loving this one just because, like I said, I'm trying to double down on prayer, get better there. And so that's a piece. So, I mean, I kind of keep going of just like different books I'm reading and what I'm, enjoying.
Those are good. Those are, a lot of, no, I appreciate those, Corey, because a lot of times my guests talk about the same, and not that that's bad. I mean, we all love Lencioni and Maxwell, and some of those. So these are the ones you just talked about. I've already followed the gentleman on LinkedIn, so I'm going to check him out. And the books, I had not heard of the books that you mentioned. So that's good. I appreciate that. Some different material than what I've seen before.
Well, I'm sure all those same books you mentioned are behind me and I've read or whatever, because those guys are awesome. But yes.
Now, you wrote another book we haven't talked about yet.
Yeah.
You want to talk a little bit about what that is?
Yeah, so Rise and Go, basically the whole idea of Rise and Go is all leaders get knocked down, whether it's a big or small setback, and big could be a health scare, a small setback could be a loss of prospect on a sales call.
Yeah.
All leaders get knocked down. It's just the great leaders get back up quicker. So what could it look like in your life if the next time you're knocked down, you get back up quicker? And I believe Rise and Go is a resource to help you do just that. It's helping, thousands of people already. And so it's a book to help. The reason I wrote the book, unfortunately, anytime I write a book, that's usually there's a problem.
Yeah.
And with Rise and Go, I mentioned I launched into coaching full-time March 1st, 2020, which was a bad time to launch anything because that was COVID.
Yes, worst time.
So obviously none of us knew COVID was going to happen or what is going to take place. But on March 13th, 2020, that's when the world shut down, especially the United States, and stay-at-home mandates, wear a mask, all that took place. I got emails on Friday, March 13th, that workshops and speaking was canceled. So in that moment, 35% of my revenue vanished. And I know there's listeners who had worse COVID experiences and even involved deaths in the family. And I'm sorry. Yeah, sorry for that.
Yeah.
For us and my family, we just left. The whole corporate deal went all into coaching March 1st. And here we are not even 2 weeks in, and 35% of the revenue is gone. So we were scared. We were like, what's going to happen to the other 65%? But Jason, I was also frustrated. Like, I was mad at God. Like, hey, I did my part. Like, we did 50-50, 75-25, 90-10, then 100-0. I did my part. Like, what's going on with you? And so I just went in those next few months just into a valley of just frustration, of fear. Not only you throw in the COVID elements of wearing a mask, which is no fun, and can't hang out with friends and all that stuff. And we know all those things. Mixed in with that, I just was frustrated. Well, I thankfully I started, I just got in the Word, and God took me on an amazing journey. During that summer, 2020, I just started reading different scripture, and Acts 8, 9, and 10, 3 different individuals in the ESV, the English Standard Version translation, are told to rise and go. And each one of them, it's a big, bold move that was significant. In Acts 8, Philip was told to rise and go speak to a eunuch who worked for the Ethiopian queen. So now, and then he ends up sharing the gospel. So what happens is, that's when the gospel starts going into royalty and into another country. Acts 9 is a guy named Ananias is told to rise and go meet a man named Saul. Well, this is the conversion from Saul to Paul.
Yep.
I mean, God probably could have used somebody else if Ananias didn't say, yes, put me in, coach.
Yeah.
But instead, he went, and then that began the conversion from Saul to Paul, who went on to write the rest of the, majority of the New Testament. And then in Acts 10, Peter was told to rise and go meet some men that Cornelius sent. And so now it gets into the Gentiles. So it's just crazy how 3 different individuals were told to rise and go. So here I am reading all this, and I got to get out of my pity party. I need to rise and go create new opportunities. How can I go be bold and courageous? And so I began this journey of getting back on my feet and climbing up. And I just read scriptures. I was getting inspired by cool stories of resilience on podcasts. And I would just start writing, like maybe a blog or something. And I'd have a client call me and say, hey, man, I'm struggling with this today. I'm like, I just wrote about this morning. Why don't you check it out? So it got battle tested over that next year. And then basically I put together the book, and the book is 20 chapters. First 10 are give you the courage to get back up. The next 10 chapters are give you the confidence to move forward.
Okay.
And it is, it's been a fun book to send out into the world and see how it's impacted some people, because the reality is we all get knocked down.
Yeah, that's right.
All the time.
Yeah.
Whether it's something done internally in our own thoughts and beliefs, whether it's something done externally. And so that's the second book, Rise and Go.
Awesome. That's great. I love it. I love the fact that the books came from you going through, some challenging experiences.
Yeah. If you see that I published a third book, you may just say, oh, crud, what happened to him?
I know what's going on with Cory. Hey, one last question. Let's say that someone comes to you, maybe one of your daughters, and they say, I have got a chance to lead a team, first time ever. My first job as supervisor, area manager, whatever you want to call it. I want to get your advice. Let's say our kids are going to come to us, Cory, and say, I want your advice, Dad. Or maybe that's a stretch. I don't know about your kids, but what's advice that you would give a first-time leader? Some things that you would say, we talked about integrity and the importance of that. What other things might you give them for guidance?
Ask questions. If you're first-time leader, you're getting to a new team, ask questions to your new direct reports. Hey, what's working? What's not working? How can I help? I mean, basically, as leaders, part of our job for our teams is to provide resources and remove obstacles.
Yeah.
And the best way to know that, if you're new in the leadership or new to the company just joined, is ask questions. And just learn the landscape, learn your team's needs. In there, the way they answer questions, you'll see some of their wiring come out. You'll see what motivates them. You'll see what's holding them back. And as the leader, if you can acknowledge your team and inspire them, like to go after it, you're going to get the best results out of your team.
Yeah. And I would say too, on that, I think you would be, as a new leader, you may be shocked at what little things you can have some early wins that they might need for you to break down that barrier to get them. I've been surprised several times that's it. That would be a big deal for you if I get that for you and you just go get it done and there's, some early wins and early trust built up.
Yeah. Which is the next part. If you ask questions, you better deliver on at least one thing.
That's right.
Because if it falls on deaf ears, then they're going to be like, you're just like the last leader I had.
Exactly.
So,
follow
ask
through.
the questions, but go deliver on at least one thing.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. Hey, Cory, before we wrap up, what's the best way for people to get a hold of you, get in touch with you and follow you?
Yeah, thanks. And Jason, thank you for what you do and for getting this message out there, biblical leadership, for work and just in helping people.
Yeah, it's a joy, man. Thank you, though, for saying
that. For me, any listeners who do LinkedIn, I love LinkedIn. So I'm right there, Corey Carlson. I've got a website, CoreyMCarlson.com, and there's coaching information there, speaking, podcast, books. Books are on Amazon and Audible. And then for the men, if you're listening, I run a community called Rise, and we just launched January 1st. I know by the time this recording will be out, who knows where the number is. So at this time, in just 6 weeks, we already got 60 men in there. We're talking homework and faith. And it's just been inspiring, actually, to see the challenge, the breakthroughs and the challenges people are overcoming already. And we just launched. So it's fun. And by the time this airs out, who knows where Rise is at. But anyways, rise-community.com. You can check out that as well.
Yeah. We'll put links on those so people can connect with you. And I follow you on LinkedIn, and you put out some good content. And your podcast as well, you can find you on their podcast app and listen to that. I was actually listening to one this morning that you recently did, The Lazy CEO. I think you were talking about
Great
the
book
Lazy
right there.
CEO.
Yeah. Go get
So-
DJ Moore's his name. He's a business owner. Get him on your podcast. Yeah.
Yeah, he was the author of the book.
No. I
He
can't
was talking about he read
DJ
it.
Moore's the
Okay.
guest. Yeah. I can't
Yeah.
remember who wrote that
Yeah.
book.
All right.
But anyways.
Yeah. Well, so thank you, Corey. It's been great, man. I'm glad we connected, and I look forward to maybe we can stay connected and do some stuff together. Also want to thank our listeners for joining us again this month. If this discussion resonated with you, I encourage you to connect with me. You can leave a rating on your podcast app, which I really appreciate, and on the YouTube channel. Subscribe there if you're watching us there, and you'll be able to get all the latest content that we put out. And be sure to return next month when we engage with another faith-driven leader striving to honor Christ in their work. And until then, continue to lead with purpose and integrity.